Monday, April 3rd, 2000. Everyone is very surprised to hear about my knee. Since it happened near the end of practice, those not playing were already looking forward to going home and paid no attention to what happened on the field. Those most surprised were Dominic Raiola, Matt Shook, and John Garrison. This is because my injury evened out the distribution of us, the centers, to just one per group. Shook and Garrison are now all on their own, something foreign to both of them, but something I'm used to. They were all mad at me for being injured, since I won't be able to be in a rotation, but what can I do? I can't walk without a limp, and I can't bend my leg more than 60 degrees. My treatment is 2 times daily, for about an hour and a half to 2 hours each day. It involves the cold whirlpool, electrode stimulation, and light bicycling. The main emphasis is to keep the swelling down and regain full range of motion without pain, and also to be able to run and change direction without trouble. Doak Ostergaard, the head trainer, thinks I could be back to practice by Friday. That seems early to me, but I guess he knows more about this than I do. Tuesday, April 4th, 2000. I stayed up late last night and got a little over an hour of sleep because of the tests I have today. I went through class and my treatment session and little else. I'm really glad that spring practices are every other day. Wednesday, April 5th, 2000. Everyone on the O-line, especially the center, wants to know when I'll be back. I told them that I could be back by Friday at the earliest, but that doesn't seem to please them. During practice today, I did some light jogging, forward and backward, and then I walked 5 sets of stairs. The practice was modified to accommodate all the hurt players by reducing the number of teams from 3 to 2. This should make Shook and Garrison happy. There was a scrimmage station today, and the defense finally found their groove and basically destroyed the offense. It was a really good show for them and should be a good confidence booster after last Saturday's scrimmage. I was talking to Scott Cothe, who was also out with an MCL sprain, and he mentioned Andy Gwenup, himself, and I are the only walk-on offensive linemen left in our class. I was shocked by this, but it's true. The system weeds out people pretty fast, but I think the 3 of us will stick around for all 5 years. For some bad news, our lone functioning scholarship quarterback for the spring, Jamal Lord, joined the disabled list with a torn posterior cruciate ligament, another one of the 4 main ligaments in the knee. It's a near-complete rupture. There are still only a few strands holding it together. He will not undergo surgery, but he will be out for a while. Friday, April 7th, 2000. Yesterday I had a treatment session in which I was put through a lot of running. I started by jogging around the field for a couple of laps. Then I did 6 100-yard strides, 2 100-yard back pedals, 2 40-yard and back shuffles, and then a figure-8 drill. Everything was fine up until the figure-8 drill. Going around the corner on those made my legs swing out, and I could really feel how loose the ligament is. My knee was pretty sore this morning. I went in for treatment, and they put me through the strength program this time. I did the Stairmaster for 20 minutes, leg press, leg curl, and a step drill. I had moderate pain with the leg press, but besides that, it was fine. For the rest of the day, however, my knee was swollen and sore. I could hardly bear standing on it during practice. I was forced to hide behind a crowd of coaches that was amassed for the clinic and to find refuge on a water cooler. I iced it again after practice and finally got some anti-inflammatory drugs. This should help a lot. I will be held out of tomorrow's scrimmage as well, in the hopes that a weekend of rest will have me ready by Monday. Saturday, April 8th, 2000. Scrimmage day. The offense really dominated the defense and set the tone early. Joe Chrisman took the quarterback snaps for the first string, Brett Lindstrom did most for the second string, and the surprise of the week was Kelly Cook taking snaps at quarterback for the third team. Kelly used to be a receiver, but he played quarterback at Omaha's Burke High School. One thing that's great about these 3 guys working the quarterback spots for all 3 teams is that every one of them is a walk-on. There were a lot of fumbles late in the scrimmage. It was either the exchange between the center and the quarterback, or nerves, or something. Whatever it wasn't good. It was incredibly boring just standing on the sideline for the whole practice and doing nothing. I did have a nice talk with the lone female on the team for spring practices, kicker Beanie Barnes, who was trying out for the team while being here on a track scholarship. I hope there are some good parties tonight. Monday, April 10th, 2000. I was cleared to practice today. I was given a brace to protect my knee and also stabilize it. I had to be cautious about what I was doing, so I was not as productive as I would have liked. I still can't run full speed or pull to the right very well. Both of those things are very painful. When we were going through our teamwork station, Garrison started with me and gave me the rare chance to have a rotation so I can get some regular rest. Halfway through the teamwork station, Shook switch with Garrison. This made my practice incredibly easy, but I'm not complaining. Wednesday, April 12th, 2000. Typically, this practice would be in sweats. The NCAA has a rule that 3 of the 15 days of spring ball must be in sweats. We were in sweats last Friday because the coaches were getting tired of all the injuries, so technically today could be in full pads. Everyone was wondering what we would do, and we finally found out the strange plan in meetings. We would start the practice in full pads, and then go through group work. After group work, the shoulder pads would come off the rest of the practice, and we would be like we were in sweats. It was kind of weird, but I didn't mind the break. My knee is feeling better. I hope these next 2 days with no practice will give it enough rest to heal fully, or just get good enough so I can play and be productive in the game on Saturday. Saturday, April 15th, 2000. This is it, the spring game. This is what we've been practicing for 4 weeks. This is why we've lifted at 7 in the morning for 4 days a week for 6 weeks. This is what will make or break many guys. This is what basically ensures that you will be invited to go through the fall camp and give you a good chance at major playing time next year. No pressures, none at all. We were given $27 at breakfast. I also got braces to protect both my knees. Having those on provides psychological reassurance. It takes my mind off worrying about the guys being thrown down on my knee because I know that they will be protected, and that frees me up to be more aggressive on the field. The game started at 12:30, and the crowd was rather large, especially for the chilly weather. The first team started the game, and we, the second team, were told that we would go in for the second quarter. The first team offense struggled pretty much the entire game to get something done, but the first half was almost a total stalemate. I was the punt snapper for all of these stalemates, and got on the field quite a bit for that. I wasn't able to come up with a tackle, but I did have quite a few good hits on potential blockers, including one where I blew a guy off his feet and sent him rolling. My snaps were not the best the entire day. I think part of the problem was the knee braces. There's a metal bar on the inside of the thigh, right along the side of the knee, and when I snapped, my elbows hit those. After a couple of snaps, my elbows were really hurting. They all got to the punters and holders, but they were not the kind of snaps that I wanted. An interesting highlight of the day was the groundbreaking introduction of Beanie Barnes, the first female punter to play in a spring game, and I snapped at her for her first official kick. Later on, she was even noted in Sports Illustrated for how far her kick went. Beanie is a great athlete and wanted to see if she had a leg for football. She hasn't been the most consistent kicker, but I'm glad the coaches gave her a chance. When we finally got in for the second quarter, it was scoreless. We put on a pretty good drive, but we were stopped halfway. Miraculously, the return person fumbled on the punt, and we recovered with great field position. We finished up the drive straight up the middle with a quarterback sneak from 1 foot away and scored. This touchdown play made the first half highlights, which were shown right before the second half started, and I thought it was pretty cool because the camera was right on me and Kelly Cook. I felt that I had a really good game. I don't think I messed up very much at all in any of the plays. I didn't put up perfect blocks, but I accomplished what I was asked. One highlight of my day happened when one of our passes was picked off by a linebacker, and I made the solo open field tackle. That felt pretty good, but it still doesn't make the interception a good thing. The game ended in a 21-21 tie. Quarterback Bobby Newcomb hurt his elbow badly enough that he could be out for 7 weeks. Linebacker Randy Stella got a bad stinger, but it shouldn't hamper him for long. It was a good day as a whole for the team. A lot of young guys got a taste of Sunday, April 16th, 2000. After a long night of celebration, I enjoyed finally being able to sleep in. I probably should have gotten treatment on my knee, but it feels pretty good, and I was not about to get up before noon. Tonight was the annual Student-Athlete Academic Recognition Banquet. This is the first year I've been invited to it, and I plan to go to all of them during my time here. The criteria for being part of the ceremony is to have a GPA above 3.0, either cumulative or for the past year. I was awarded the bronze honors for having a GPA between 3.0 and 3.49. There is also a high honors, that's GPA 3.5 to 3.749, and highest honors, 3.75 to 4.0. High honors and highest are given silver and gold medals respectively. The medal is a duplicate of the athletic and academic seal for the university. This will look good on my desk, along with all the other awards I've racked up over the years. Saturday, April 22nd, 2000. Coach Tenniper invited all of the offensive line over to his house for a big cookout like he did last summer. This time, instead of a keg, he had a big cooler full of Busch Light. I didn't really want to drink, but I ended up having one anyways. The other guys just sat at the picnic table drinking away, and in the end, Coach Tenniper was kind of mad because we drank all of his beer. Another thing that was different about this year was that he actually let us use his house to play pool, and we didn't have to use his fence as a restroom. I played basketball most of the time, in game after game of pig. It was a pretty good time overall. Coach Tenniper is jovial when he's in his own habitat. Maybe he's more comfortable there, or maybe the beer helped break the ice. I'm not sure. Tuesday, April 25th, 2000. We had a team meeting today. Coach Solich led it, and talked mostly about what will happen and what is expected this summer. After that, I met with Coach Solich personally for our end-of-the-year meeting. He mostly reiterated everything Coach Tenniper told me a week ago. One new thing he said was that I may not travel. They usually take 3 centers on road trips. Even if I'm the third-string center, Garrison will go as the third-string center because he's the first-string long snapper. That means, if I want to travel, which would be awesome because we're going to Notre Dame this year, I need to get faster and beat Garrison for the snapping job. I can do it. I just have 4 months to do it. Friday, April 28th, 2000. After a good week lifting, and also the last week of classes, it was time to party. I started out the night at quarterback Joe Chrisman's apartment, where we had a surprise birthday party for his roommates, tight end Will Dabbert and cornerback Tyler Roundson. This was a pretty good party, and I was proud to see it was not a sausage fest, since some of the guys have close ties to sororities. After I got bored there, I drove to Scott Cothey's house with Matt Shook carefully following me. I showed up for one of the biggest parties of the year about 30 minutes after the cops busted it. Scott lives there with Steve Allstat, Dan Swantek, and Mike Green, all offensive linemen, and in a house that is quickly building a reputation as a great party house. Steve was talking about how he's getting screwed over by the coaches because of his grades. His scholarship was taken away because of his grades, and he thought he was going to get it back after a good semester, but it appears he won't. We got into a discussion about how much work and effort you have to put in here at Nebraska, when you might not even get a single play your entire time here. Just having the tagline of being a lineman from UNL could get us a scholarship in nearly any other school in the nation, but we can't even get that type of respect from our own coaches. Mike Green is the perfect example. He hasn't played a down in 3 years. A Division I school in California has recently offered him a full-ride scholarship just because he's from Nebraska. Also, we spend so much time with football-related activities that our social life is very limited. If we tried to have a social life like a regular college student, we would have no time to study and would flunk out of school. If we want to do well in school, we have to either be very smart, which some guys are not, or highly restrict our free time. Any one of us would be superstars and the big man on campus at any Division II or Division III school. Here, you're just lost in the crowd unless you're a starter, and that typically doesn't happen until your 3rd or 4th year. I guess I have 2 choices. Stay here in the hopes that one day I'll be a starter and get some recognition, but face the possibility that my turn will never come, or transfer to another school and become a local celebrity but not have the national attention or the program that I have here. If I don't see professional football in my future, why shouldn't I go somewhere where I can have an impact? Everybody close to me loves to hear the first-hand stories of how the team is doing, and virtually anybody can make a conversation with me based solely on football. Yet, I feel like I will always be a messenger, never a newsmaker. Will my time ever come? Will I keep developing? Is there a spot for me here that I can fill and make the most of? Or should I just try my luck at being a star somewhere else? Sunday, April 30th, 2000. Coach Young had a party for the kickers and snappers at his house today. Everyone was there except Dominic Raiola and Russ Hochstein, both of whom long snap. There was John Garrison and me, Chase Long, Josh Brown, Dan Haydenfeld, and Kyle Larson. Coach cooked up some enormous steaks and had all the side dishes including salad, baked potatoes, beans, and bread. Coach Young is hard to carry on a conversation with, especially if you don't know what his interests are. Personally, I stopped trying long ago to get on his good side. I'd much rather just stay away from him. One thing that really surprised me was that there was no alcohol, especially since it was at Coach Young's house. That's a good idea, I guess. I didn't want to drink anyways because I have to study for finals tonight. After getting stuffed and topping it off with ice cream, I made my way home and began a long night of studying. Wednesday, May 3rd, 2000. I got word this week that I will move to the south locker room to be with the upperclassmen. This means the coaches think I'm ready to become a real contributor and join the rest of the team in the main locker room. This is a very good sign. The depth chart was announced today. It said that I'm third string. My weight is really taking off. I'm very near 300 pounds, and I don't really know what I'm doing differently to suddenly gain all the weight. I think my metabolism must be slowing down or something. I'm working hard to make sure all the extra weight is muscle and not fat. Saturday, May 20th, 2000. I started the first session of summer school last Monday, and all 3 sessions combined to go straight through the summer and right up to fall camp. I'm going to summer school to stay caught up, not to get ahead. If I'm going to get done in 5 years, I really need to get a lot of work done each semester and not waste any time. I'm in no rush to finish school. I got my report card from this semester, and I was very delighted to see that I got a 4.0. This brings my cumulative GPA to 3.4, and I hope to keep raising it. I was one of 5 guys on the entire team to get a 4.0, and the only lineman. Brian Nelson moved in with me, and so far he's a pretty good roommate. Later on, tight end recruit Chris Septak, another guy from my high school, will move in along with his roommate for next year, making this little apartment very crowded. I still don't know how it's going to work out. I moved over to the south locker room this week. I now have a big locker about twice the size of the ones in the north locker room. They're more like an open closet with a built-in foot locker and a cabinet on top. Most guys just throw their stuff in the big open area in the middle, and I guess that must be safe because so many guys do it. I can padlock the foot locker and the cabinet, but there is no way to guard the open middle. My deodorant was taken from my locker the second day, so I put a lock on the cabinet. The south locker room is definitely a lot cleaner than the north, and it is much more modern. They have actual urinals instead of a big long trough, and unlike the other locker room, these bathrooms have extravagant features not only of individual stalls around the toilets, but actual doors on them as well. The shower area is a little smaller, and most of the shower heads don't work right, so it does have one drawback. The other thing I'll miss about the north locker room was the couches they had in front of the TVs. We would sit there and relax after practice and watch The Simpsons or Friends. There is a player's lounge with couches and a bigger TV just down the hall from the south locker room, so I guess that's good enough. The lifting schedule for these first 3 weeks is pretty laid back. The emphasis is getting our form back after a long break and building our base up before we go for any major strength. Most of the guys are back for lifting now, but a few who live far away will return in the next 2 weeks. I have a lot of plans for this summer, a lot of concerts and trips around the country, including Kansas City, Chicago, and New York. It should be a good time. Saturday, May 27th, 2000. Ryan Omert, a freshman wide receiver, and I went to a fundraiser in Omaha as Huskers celebrities, even though nobody really knew who we were. It was a fundraiser for leukemia research and was an all-day bike ride across a good section of Iowa and Nebraska. We showed up to their end-of-the-day picnic and got some free food and a t-shirt, did a pie eating contest, and signed a few autographs for some kids, and that was 2000 summer conditioning. Tuesday, May 30th, 2000. After a quick 3-day weekend, I had to jump right back into the swing of things. I had a history test today and failed to get any good studying done the whole weekend, so I ended up staying up all but an hour last night studying. I told Archer I needed to study some more, so I didn't have to lift this morning. I think I did pretty well on the test in the end, but I brought this on myself for not studying earlier. I grabbed some food over at the Union and lifted at about 1 o'clock. I was very tired and feeling incredibly weak, so I modified my program to fit my energy level. Besides, yesterday I helped carry 150 cubic feet of dirt in 5-gallon buckets as my dad and I put in a new planting bed in our backyard. I think that was all the workout I needed this week. I began thinking about what I'm doing. My life will be ruled by football and school for the next 3 years. I've already spent 2 years in these shackles, and I'm just beginning to question what I'm doing. Do I really want to do this? Do I want to have the best years of my life pinned down by all these restrictions and commitments? I don't know. I know that I could never do this for my whole life. A pro football career would be nice, but how long do I want to keep doing this, and more importantly, how long will my body last? I want to be free for a while and have the opportunity to literally get away from my life and do some self-discovery. It may sound like a romantic dream or just some nonsensical rambling, but that's what I'm feeling right now. Maybe I just need some sleep to help clear my mind. Monday, June 5th, 2000. This last weekend was a lot of fun. It was also very long. Sunday was spent at a concert in Iowa. I got back to Omaha at 2 in the morning and planned to drive to Lincoln. My dad made me stay, which probably was the best choice. But then I had to be careful not to be late to lifting in the morning. With all the construction on I-80 between Omaha and Lincoln, it was hard to judge the time. I made it to Lincoln and ran into the weight room with 10 seconds to spare. If I had been a few steps slower or hit one more red light, I would have been running stairs. During the past week, I've been averaging about 5 hours of sleep a night. After this morning's lifting, I was very tired. I couldn't help dozing off in my new classes today, no matter how hard I fought it. This afternoon we had a team meeting in which I learned absolutely nothing new, except I think the motto for this next year will be Championship Commitment. That's a pretty crappy motto. Perhaps we're running out of catchphrases after so many years of having one. I think we should have an abstract phrase or a quote that could tie in with a lot of different things all at once, but I think too many people wouldn't understand it. Championship Commitment just doesn't strike that spark of inspiration the past ones held, at least for me. After the meeting, I was invited to Spaghetti Works with some of the other guys. It ended up being Jason Schwab, Dominic Raiola, who was recently named the #1 center in the country, Russ Hochstein, the #3 guard in the country, and John Rutherford. Schwab is really a great guy. He has worked his way up from walking on, and is now in his 6th year after being hurt last year. I guess he sympathizes with me, or sees something in me, because he's one of the older guys who goes out of his way to make me feel comfortable. At this dinner, he helped me get into the conversation after I arrived late, and really made me feel like one of the guys. As rough as it is to be a football player here with all the dedication, sacrifices, and responsibilities that we have, it's always good to know that you're accepted among people you spend the majority of your time with. Friday, June 16th, 2000. We start running next week, with all the jump ropes and bag drills. I'm not in the greatest aerobic shape right now, so I ran 2 stairs in the South Stadium on Monday and Thursday this week. In retrospect, I'm very glad I did. Today, after my alarm didn't go off, I got to the weight room about a minute late, and the usual punishment is 3 stairs. I had to do these after I got done with a set of 10 for heavy squat, when my legs were already tired. The whole offensive line went out on the field to watch me run my punishment and jeer me for being late and wasting their time. I got through the first 2 stairs fine, but I really had to push myself to make that 3rd one. After it was all over, my body was entirely spent, and I wasn't able to finish my workout very well. I'm pretty sure that I won't be late to lifting anymore. I can't find a job anywhere in Lincoln. Unemployment is at a record low, but the hours that I can work don't match up very well with places around town. With the morning lifting, midday school, 5:30 running, and a few meals thrown in, it makes it very hard to be desirable to many businesses. If possible, I want to work someplace from 8 to midnight. With gas prices creeping closer to $2 and a pretty busy social life, I need some money. The Huskers are usually good about finding places around town that are willing to accommodate athletes for their weird schedules, but so far, nothing has come through. I'm beginning to see just how prevalent marijuana use is around the city as well as on campus. For instance, I went over to a buddy's house recently to pick him up, and all of his roommates were in the living room smoking pot. Being their teammate, they graciously offered me to join them, but I turned it down. I'm not sure how they get away with this, both legally as well as with the drug tests that we have, but they must have a system. Apparently, the team only does urine tests 3 times a year, and this is always around the same time. If you're clean by that time, you're golden. The only real gamble is hoping you don't get called up for a random drug test by the NCAA, but they only pick a handful of guys, and they're usually the higher-profile players to begin with. Here's a little more information about our drug testing procedures that didn't make it into the book. When we do our testing, we do it during the spring practices, once before the season, and once at mid-season, and so you always know when those 3 times of the year are coming up. If you wanted to, yeah, you could stay clean enough from whatever you're doing, and be sure to pass those tests, and then go back to doing whatever you wanted to. Even if you happen to be smoking pot even a day before these tests, you still might not get caught, because oftentimes they're only testing for certain things. They have a whole list of potential drugs they could test for, but they can't run every single test for every single specimen, so they have to pick and choose. Most of the time they'll look for methamphetamines and the heavy street drugs, but often marijuana is not one of their main concerns. Steroids are definitely a main concern that they'll look for quite often, and the NCAA looks for that as well. When the NCAA comes around, It's totally random. They can come at any time of the year, and you'll just get a notice that day, or pretty much that hour, saying that you're required to show up and pee in the cup. Because we do our own testing ourselves outside the NCAA standards, it kind of looks like we could fudge the numbers and make ourselves look better, but that isn't really the case. A lot of guys, well, a handful of guys have gotten caught in the past for various things, mostly drug-related, like marijuana, and they are treated with as we have the rules for. The first offense is basically just a slap on the wrist. You're told to not do it again, and you're then scheduled for routine drug tests to make sure that you're going to stay clean. The second time that you get caught, you get a note sent to your parents, and you are going to be sent for counseling. The third time you get caught, you're off the team. Now, this has happened before, where guys will get caught 3 times in a row, and or even more, because they've been given many, many more chances to clean up, and there's really nothing that we can do about it. The rules are the rules, and we got to follow them. One last little interesting thing I'll mention here is that on the list that they give us with all those drugs that they could test for, and I posted this on my website, huskerstories.com, under the memorabilia and pictures link. There's another link that'll take you to the photo album itself, and then you can search through team information and find the drug test information sheet there. It's a PDF form. And you'll notice that by methamphetamines and cocaine, in parentheses it says championship only. I don't know what this means to you, but to me it shows that they're only going to test for these certain substances during a championship game. So basically, any other time of the year, you're fine. If you want to use coke for the whole season, you're good, but just don't do it for the championship. Monday, June 19th, 2000. Our schedule for the rest of the summer will be running on Monday and Thursday nights, passing league and option drill on Tuesday and Friday nights, and continued lifting at 7:30 in the morning each of those days. We started running today, and it was hot, humid, bright, and I was tired. I should have started running stairs earlier. I didn't figure that the 20 extra pounds I've gained would work so much against me. I'm staying just under 300 pounds right now, and I'm not having any difficulty holding this weight. I got my body fat tested today, and the report was pretty much what I expected. I'm now at 17% body fat, a gain of almost 3%. Dave Ellis said this isn't good, but he's not worried since it's a relatively healthy percentage. Thursday, July 6th, 2000. Today was the first day back after a nice 5-day weekend. I was able to go to Kansas City and see one of my favorite bands, Blink-182. This was a lot of fun for me, mostly because I was able to just walk straight through the packed crowd on the main floor of the auditorium with no problem at all until I was all the way to the front row. All I had to do was keep moving forward until the kid ahead of me turned around to see a 6'5", 300-pound guy in a Nebraska football shirt standing behind them. One of them was even kind enough to spread the word to the crowd by yelling, "Holy shit! Big guy coming through!" I got a letter today saying I'm not going to be part of the fall camp. This is really disappointing to me because I thought I had a good chance of being in the camp, which would have meant that I'd have a good chance of traveling. I know that my parents really wanted me to travel so they could go to the Notre Dame game, but that looks doubtful now. I guess I can look at the bright side of having 2 weeks free with nothing to do, instead of getting up at 5:30 for practice. Honestly, I think I would have rather gone to camp. Friday, June 14th, 2000. Courage and stupidity are a dangerous mix. I proved this today by trying to test my limits and see what I could get away with by being 2 days away from 21 years of age. So, I went to a liquor store to stock up on some birthday party supplies, thinking I was so close to the actual age that they would either say, "You're close enough," or "Try again in a few hours." I thought wrong. The clerk asked for my ID, which I gave her. She did a quick double take and said, "You're not 21. I'm calling the cops, and I'm going to keep your license." My heart was in my throat at this point, but I knew I could do nothing else but stand there and take it. She told me I could leave, but the cops would just hunt me down and eventually serve me the ticket. Having nothing better to do, I waited patiently and actually ended up having an enjoyable small-talk conversation with the clerk. A female cop showed up a few minutes later and wrote me a ticket for minor attempting to purchase, and then I was free to go until my court date. So, with fall camp only a few weeks away, I have to make sure that the coaches don't find out about this, or else I could be in big trouble. This is a little afterthought section I put in. In the end, I was able to sneak off to court in between meetings. I didn't have a lawyer and just pled guilty, knowing full well that I was guilty and that I deserved any punishment I received. I paid the fine and had a misdemeanor on my record after that. Near the end of college, as I was applying to different jobs as well as working on my teaching license, I ran into many instances where having a misdemeanor turned out to be a big inconvenience. I went to the student legal office and talked to one of the lawyers, who suggested that we go back and try to expunge it from my record. We quickly proved that I have had a clean record since that incident, and that I have done several positive things as well. The judge granted our request, and now my record is back to being perfect. The coaches never found out about this, nor did the media. I guess it pays to be one of the guys who's below the radar. Here's a little extra thing about my time in court for this. Usually, most people go up before the judge and they'll read them the charges, and the person will look sorry and say, "I'm sorry, Judge, it'll never happen again." For me, when I went up, the judge looked at my file, and then saw my birth date and how I was now past 21 years of age. Even though I was stating the obvious, I too said it'll never happen again. Thursday, July 27th, 2000. Once again, I fell a little behind in the upkeep of my journal. July 14th was John Archer's last day as our strength coach. He took a job at a different school to do what Boyd Epley does here, which is basically being in charge of everything. The next week is possibly the strangest, most disorganized week I have ever seen here at Nebraska. Brian Bailey took over Archer's spot as the O-line's workout leader. Bailey is quite possibly the most educated and innovative workout technician in the world. Every player who works with him loves him, and he practices what he preaches. He runs 1 mile for every year of his birthday, and 10 miles every other day of the year. Some of the weight room staff was saying that if Archer came back right now, he wouldn't believe what has happened. For our morning lifting, Bailey put us into categories, such as injured, healthy, freshman, etc. Our workouts were modified based on these categories. We're doing a lot of extra things as well. Most of these are little exercises that focus on stability, balance, flexibility, and range of motion. This is not a new idea, but it's the first time we've really focused on these things. Bailey said his intention for all of us is to develop explosive power. It's not enough just to lift the weight, we now have to lift it fast. This means that the weight of our sets will decrease, but all the little extra stuff will make sure we leave just as tired. Bailey really cares about how we are feeling as well. He constantly asks if our backs are sore or if we have any other injuries. If we're hurt in any way, he modifies our workout so we can get the best possible workout while staying away from our injured area. This is a nice change from Archer. This is a little afterthought I threw in. Bailey's story is a great one, and I'll try to retell it the best I can. He was working as a personal trainer, barely making ends meet, when a friend told him about an opportunity to train a guy in another country. Bailey jumped at the chance and was soon employed by a very wealthy Middle Eastern sheik as his personal trainer. I'm not sure how long he was there, but he commented that it was always very tense because you can get in trouble for even looking at a woman, and this guy had several wives. I'm not really sure about the rest of the story about how he eventually came to Nebraska. As respected as he was by all the athletes, he was not respected by the head of the weight room, Boyd Epley. Bailey developed several different stretches and workouts, getting credit for a few, but Boyd apparently caused tension on at least one occasion when he demanded credit for Bailey's work. This administrative bickering got so heated that at one point the players actually had to petition Coach Solich to be able to get Bailey to travel with us on an away game so he could be there to warm us up properly. We were initially told that there was no room for him on the travel list, but we knew that was crap. Bailey was more important than saving a seat on the plane for the university chancellor or his wife, and none of us would even notice or care if our chancellor weren't there. We would have definitely been affected negatively if Bailey were the only one left behind. Presently, he is one of the strength coaches at the University of Southern California. I have no doubt that he is a big part of the success that they've had recently. Saturday, July 29th, 2000. Coach Tenneper had another steak fry at his house. I showed up late after taking my future sister-in-law, Stacy Marcus, out to a late lunch. I was already stuffed, but I managed to eat a steak anyways. After 11 straight weeks, the summer workouts are finally done, and this is the celebration. Coach Tenneper told everyone to just go home and relax for the rest of the week, and I plan to do that. My back is really sore from one of the last running days, and I can use the rest. Friday, August 4th, 2000. I took this whole week off and rested at home in Omaha. My back didn't get better very quickly, so I saw a doctor, a chiropractor, and a physical therapist. They concluded that I've had a spasm in my left mid-back for a long time, mostly caused by a slight misalignment of my hip bone. This should clear up pretty quickly, hopefully. My dad called Coach Tenneper to check on some stuff and found out that senior guard Chris Sawfeld just had a major back treatment with an epidural. Coach said if Chris doesn't get better in time for two-a-days on Tuesday, I will go in his spot. This put me in a weird position because I really want to go to fall camp, but I also want Chris to have a good year. He's been severely hampered by injuries throughout his career, and he hasn't seen much playing time. If he doesn't go to camp, that will definitely handicap his chances. Coach Tenneper said I'm next on the list, and he stressed that he needs more centers to step up and be ready to give Dominic Raiola a breather because he goes 100% all the time and Coach doesn't want to wear him out. Saturday, August 6, 2000. The sports page today reported that incoming freshman tackle M.J. Flom is out for the year with a shoulder problem. This could open up a spot for me since I was already next in line after Chris Sawfeld. There are pros and cons for attending fall camp. The good parts are that we get some of the best meals of the year at the training table, we get to break in the new equipment, they pay us for everything, the chances of getting some playing time are greatly increased, and I would have a much better understanding of the offense. The bad parts are getting up really early in the morning for practices, 2 practices a day, sitting through meetings where it's almost impossible to stay awake, and having no energy to do anything else for 2 weeks. Monday, August 7th, 2000. I left a message for Coach Tenneper to call me about the fall camp, and he later called me back and said that I'm going. It was actually a relief to hear this, and I started thinking about everything that will go on for the next 2 weeks. I called my dad right afterwards and told him the news, which 2000 fall camp. Tuesday, August 8th, 2000. I got my body fat tested today, and I stayed right at 17%. I've gained close to 30 pounds since last fall, weighing in now at 305. 20 of those pounds that I've gained were muscle. Ellis gave me a big thumbs up for this report. He told me that to maintain my weight at this level of physical activity, I would need to eat about 7,000 calories a day. To put that amount into perspective, the average person is supposed to eat about 2,500 calories a day. That's almost 3 times as much. If I wanted to gain any more weight, I'm going to have to eat more than 7,000 calories. Since my first day here, every meal I've had at the training table fills my tray with 2 full plates of food, always with lots of vegetables and fruits, and dessert is usually yogurt, all washed down by 3 or 4 glasses of milk. During the summers, I have to fend for myself, but I usually get by, eating a whole large pizza or an entire thing of hamburger helper by myself, not to mention a whole can of corn or green beans, and that's just for dinner, only one of the 4 meals I try to eat each day. I also found out that I grew a little bit since last year. I added a 1/4 inch to my height, and my feet even got bigger, forcing me to change to shoe size 17. This is pretty amazing to still be growing at age 21. I hope I'm not done yet. We got some new gear today. Along with 2 media guidebooks, we got a new pair of black shorts, a t-shirt, new shoes, and $57. The grass shoes this year are much better than the previous years. They have a molded plastic bottom, as opposed to the kind with replaceable cleats, and they're very cool looking. I had a physical and everything was fine. After a long summer of feeding myself, I was able to eat at the training table today. Just as I had heard, they pull out all the stops during 2-a-days and give us all the favorites, prime rib, steak, kebabs, and all the side dishes that we only see once a week if we're lucky during the season. Later on in the day, we filled out a bunch of paperwork for the NCAA, and the coaches and support staff told us what's going to happen, what to do, and, of course, what not to do. We also learned of recent rules affecting the Big 12 states. Physical activity, such as physical testing, now counts as a full practice, so we're not going to test tomorrow, since NCAA also limits the number of practices a team can have before the first game. Instead, we will meet with someone from the Big 12 officiating committee to go over some new rules. Wednesday, August 9th, 2000. Today was pretty much all meetings. We met in the morning for about an hour, and then in the evening for 3 hours. Many different people from the community spoke to us about issues like agents, betting, girls, alcohol, staying out of trouble, and other such moral guidance issues. Johnny Rogers, the 1972 Heisman winner and former Husker All-Star, was there and spoke about all the trouble he got into and told us, from his own experience, how easy it is to get into trouble and how hard it is to get out. It felt like it was midnight by the time it ended, but it was only 7:30. I hope this means I'll be able to fall asleep fast tonight, considering tomorrow's practice is at 6:30 in the morning. Thursday, August 10th, 2000. We started bright and early this morning, and I actually felt pretty good, refreshed and awake, thinking I was ready for anything. Actually, it wasn't too bright. The sun had barely risen by the time we stepped out in the practice field. The practice went about 2 hours, with group work and 3 stations with the number 1s versus number 2s, 2s versus 1s, and 3s versus 3s. The afternoon practice was on the grass. The temperature cooled off to make it pretty nice. We had to run 2 gassers at the end. I guess we're going to run gassers after every afternoon practice, which doesn't sound very nice to me. My legs are already sore, and I'm looking forward to a good night's sleep. Friday, August 1st, 2000. Practices were similar to yesterday. There are big blue plastic horse tanks filled with water and a little chlorine for us to cool off in after practice. This feels amazingly good after sweating for 2 hours in the heat. The rookie freshmen are a good bunch of kids. We don't have too many offensive linemen, only 3 right now since one of them is out with a shoulder injury. Coach Solich has made it clear that there will be no hazing, but he can't be around all the time, and this is when it happens. Some of the guys were playing a quiz game with Sandro DeAngelis, the new place kicker, and if he got a question wrong, he got dunked in the tank. Of course, the questions were rigged, so he got dunked on every question. We told the rookie linemen to hustle back into the stadium after the afternoon practice and grab us a bag full of sandwiches and drinks for all the linemen. When they tried to collect all the food, they were told this was a form of hazing and they didn't have to follow through with it. The scholarship linemen from last year said they had to do that kind of stuff all the time when they came in. Saturday, August 12th, 2000. Today was typical, although we started wearing pads today. We just went in shoulder pads in the morning and then sweats in the afternoon, but it was a major change to the tempo of the practice. We were finally able to do some good hitting after 4 long months. I'm on the 3rd-team offense with the 3 scholarship freshmen, along with sophomore Scott Cothe and redshirt freshman Tim Green. We're kind of the black sheep of the offense right now because we're still struggling to get the plays memorized and do the right thing. Coach Tennifer yells at us continually, and it will probably take a few more days before we make any good progress. After the evening practice, we got a nice surprise by not having to run gassers. This really made my weekend. I'm also looking forward to tomorrow because the first thing we have to do is lunch at noon and the meeting is at 1:30, so I plan on sleeping in. Sunday, August 13th, 2000. Before the second meeting in the auditorium and before the coaches got there, starting center Dominic Raiola got on the computer and changed the schedule for tomorrow. For the first practice, instead of saying practice full pads, he changed it to practice sweats and sandals, and he changed the second practice to practice maybe TBA. Everyone was laughing while he did this, and he had plenty of time before the coaches came in. When Coach Solich arrived, he started off by going over the schedule and said, "We're going to have practice tomorrow at 8 o'clock, just like it says on the schedule." He then did a double take at the schedule projected on the screen and began to laugh as the whole room burst out laughing. When he regained control of the room and continued on the schedule, he came to the second place and caught the changes there too, causing the room to break out in laughter again. Then he made sure to tell us what's really going to happen and sent us off to group meetings. Monday, August 14th, 2000. I went to bed a little later than I should have last night. This morning was in full pads again and I just felt sluggish, struggling through 2.5 hours of practice. I then had to run a couple of errands, so I wasn't even able to relax between the practices. I had to be back at 1:15 for a special teams meeting and then was finally able to come home at 8 o'clock. It was a long day. When we're doing group work, I work with the first-string offense, including Dominic Raiola. He's really one of the best centers to ever come through Nebraska, and what better way for me to learn the position than through hands-on, one-on-one contact with Dom. During group work, he mainly goes through his proper steps, but doesn't go off hitting very hard. I don't mind this since I know he can manhandle me, but I think he does it to just focus on footwork and hand placement. Emulating this has helped me a lot with my basic technique. I wish Dominic would be a little more vocal with the younger guys, including me, however. He is usually very quiet during group work, and if I mess up, he hardly ever steps up to help me out. He usually just says a couple of words like stay low, pull flatter, pull for this backer, or some kind of simple directions. I wish he would take a bigger leadership role and pull all the centers together and go over stuff as a group. After him, we only have 3 sophomore centers, including me, and one of us is going to be his backup. He probably could play a full game every game, but he will need a break sometime and one of us has to step up. None of us has much, if any, experience. So if I were him, I would make sure the backups knew what they were doing. We got $68 at dinner tonight. This is in addition to the $57 and $47 we got a couple of days ago. I think we get about $250 total for the whole 2-a-day experience. Tuesday, August 15th, 2000. This morning was in full pads again. I have a feeling we might not go back to helmets and sweats for a while. The practice was pretty intense with some live action, but it didn't wear me out too much because we were running with 2 stations instead of 3. This put 2 centers on both teams, and it meant that I could finally get a rotation and a break. I hardly ever get a break in any practice, so this was a welcome change. Everybody was tired this morning, and the general feeling was that this was a pretty crappy practice. I ate brunch and went home for a short nap, and then went right back to the stadium to get tape before the 1:30 meetings. The 3 o'clock practice was decent. We worked in a rotation again, which helped save my legs for the gassers we had to do at the end. I have these faint memories of something called a social life. I wonder if it will ever come back to me sometime soon. I kinda miss it. Wednesday, August 16th, 2000. The morning practice was typical. Full pads, lots of hitting, and lots of sweating. At one point, John Dawson, a freshman guard, got into a fight with one of the defensive guys that almost turned into a giant rumble. Everyone who was in the fight had to do a set of stairs. Coach Solich called us together right away in midfield, and talked about us being a team and watching out for each other and respecting everybody. To make sure the message was clear, the entire team had to run gassers at the end of the morning practice, something that hasn't been done before. None of us expected to do this, and we were all very tired afterward. The afternoon practice was a pleasant break. We went half pads and just did special teams the entire time. I did my time on the punt team and then went down to the pit with the O-line. We walked through plays for the entire time with our pads and helmets off. We had plenty of time to waste, and then went up to the top and did some field goal work, and that was it. Before our 6 o'clock meeting tonight, Willie Amos, a freshman rover from Texas, put on a jump rope show for us in the auditorium. He's a member of the national and world champion jump rope team and did things with the jump rope that I never knew were possible. He went under his legs, doing push-ups, quadruple rotations, jumping 3 feet in the air, and a bunch of other hard-to-imagine tricks. It really was a feat of athletic ability that a big guy like a lineman would have no chance of doing. He got a rousing ovation from everyone there, and Coach Solich even joked around, saying that his routine is going to be worked into our conditioning program. Thursday, August 17th, 2000. With the end of 2-a-days so near, we're all wearing out, and the overall effort is visibly trailing off. Everyone is tired and sore and in need of a good night's rest. The only thing to say about today's 2 practices is that everybody was saying how horrible they did in them. Friday, August 18th, 2000. This was the last day of practice for fall camp, and everybody is really looking forward to the end. This morning was in full pads and seemed like everybody was going half speed. I met up with punter Kyle Larson after the morning practice and helped him work on his punting for another 45 minutes. When I got back to the locker room, on the dry erase board was a list of everyone who has to pay rent for this year. They had everyone listed except me. It said rent will be due tomorrow, but I don't know if they'll get away with it with the coach's current stance on hazing. I hope they hear about it and get it stopped. I've only heard bits of stories about what happens when paying rent. The guys who tell the stories never have that happy memories look when they tell it. Paying rent is basically the initiation process everyone new to the South locker room has to go through. They call each new person out one by one and beat them up a little or a lot, depending on the guy. Everyone seems certain that the afternoon practice would be in sweats. After the morning practice, however, Coach Solich said the afternoon practice would be in half pads. Everyone groaned, and some guys were visibly pissed off. Coach Solich later came to the group meetings and said we would be going in sweats for the afternoon practice after all. Everyone was immediately happy, and the whole atmosphere changed. The practice seems short and sweet, but it was ruined in the end by having to run gassers. The first one was a full gasser, but Coach Solich had the warmth and compassion to make the second one only a half gasser. Saturday, April 19th, 2000. I knew it couldn't last long. I walked into the locker room this morning, and one of the guys immediately said, "Hey, we don't have Kolowski up there." My name was officially added to the list of those who have to pay rent. After scrimmage, it was time to pay rent. They herded all of us into the bathroom and blocked the main entrance off with a chalkboard. All of the established guys were in the middle of the locker room with plastic bats, trash cans, big water jugs, and soccer balls wrapped in athletic tape with 5-foot handles to whip them around. Scott Cothe was the first to go out and get it. They called his name, and he cautiously walked out into the wide-open middle of the locker room and into the lion's den. We couldn't see from the bathroom, but we heard a lot of yelling, laughing, and painful whacks for a short time. John Garrison was next, and he got it a little worse. By the time they called the next person, Coach Solich had made his way past the barricade and popped around the corner. He said sternly, "I don't know what you guys are doing, but if it has anything to do with hazing, you're all in big trouble." All of us retreated to our lockers quickly and quietly. After a few minutes had passed, some of the veterans tried to get it organized again, but their fear of reprisal by the coaches luckily got the best of them, and they called it off. I guess this might be the end of another tradition. This kind of thing could only happen during two-a-days. The media isn't as omnipresent as they are during the regular practices, and classes aren't in session, giving anybody with visible bruises that couldn't be accounted for on the football field a chance to heal up before school starts. Jim Tansey got it real bad when he paid rent. They were merciless on him, dousing him with chew spit, kicking him in the chest and back, and hitting him so hard with baseball bats that he had bruises on his arms and legs for weeks. To top it off, someone threw an apple as hard as they could at his head. It exploded into chunks, but not before giving him a welt and a hell of a headache. The only funny story about paying rent was with Toniu Finoti, a huge Samoan and one of the biggest guys I've ever known. When he was called out to receive his beating, he just said, "No, you won't be doing that." Nobody was brave enough to argue with him. This is a little afterthought I put in. Toniu eventually became an outstanding guard for us, earning several top honors, and was a runner-up for the Outland Trophy as a true junior. He also became the first true freshman 2000 season. Monday, August 21st, 2000. First day of school, first day of regular practices. For the third year in a row, it looks like I'll be on the scout team. I rotated with one of the new guys, and had to tell him what to do on most of the plays, and he did it very well. He'll probably pass me on the depth chart pretty soon. Wednesday, August 23rd, 2000. Today was probably one of the hardest practices I've had in a long time. Matt Shook is out sick, and John Garrison is away due to a death in the family, making me the number 2 center. This was my time to shine and show the coaches what I think I deserve. Overall, I thought I did very well, and can't think of any play that I messed up on. I also took all the first-team punt snaps, but I didn't do too well with that. I've recently been working on narrowing my stance to enable me to get back and block better on rushes. I didn't do too well with that today. Dominic Raiola said when Coach Young yelled at me, it was the loudest he'd ever heard him yell. I just need more practice against a good defense like that. I hardly get any snaps against a decent defense when Garrison is here, so this was new for me. Thursday, August 24th, 2000. I heard a rumor today that fellow sophomore center Matt Shook quit last night because he was having a lot of trouble with his knees. This sent off a chain reaction in my brain, thinking about what that meant for me on the depth chart, making me third string, which meant I would travel to the away games, and also that I would have to miss my brother Jason's wedding in October. This issue has really been worrying my brother, because he and Stacy are basically planning the wedding around my schedule. I still can't give him a definite answer about whether I can go to his wedding yet. We have an away game at Texas Tech on October 14th, the day of his wedding, and he can't seem to understand the situation completely. He's desperately trying to get all these details settled. Shook was back at practice tonight. I didn't ask him about his knees or about the rumor. Even with Shook back, I'm still running with the number 2s. This looks pretty good for me to get some playing time in the San Jose State game. I guess the real test will happen when Garrison comes back. Saturday, August 26th, 2000. We practiced this morning at 9:30. It was a very fun practice for me because I had a lot of energy. Whenever someone on the scout team line needed a break, I called Jack Limbaugh in to play center, and I switched over to the other position. I covered every spot on the line throughout the day, and had a lot of fun doing it. I like playing tackle more than playing center. I might have to try to do that again. Fan day began right after practice. When they opened the gates, people came rushing in to line up for autographs. I was really amazed by the turnout, especially for the offensive line. I couldn't really judge the size of the entire crowd, but one person said the line just for the offensive line was 45 minutes long. I didn't see many objects with more than 15 signatures on them the entire day, meaning that everyone had a hard time getting around and collecting autographs. Tuesday, August 29th, 2000. The depth chart came out today. Probably the biggest surprise to me was to see that John Rutherford, the second-string guard, is also the second-string center. Actually, this doesn't surprise me as much as it will other people who haven't kept up with us. I understand where Coach Tenneper is coming from with this decision. Shook, Garrison, and I have little to no experience, and Coach wants someone with game experience to back up Dominic. Garrison is a feisty player who puts all he has in every play, but he doesn't have the size or strength to be very effective and usually gets tossed around. Shook is hampered by bad knees, but is generally pretty good besides that. As for me, I don't yet have that hard-nosed attitude that makes Dominic such an exciting player, and I could use more speed and strength as well. For as many players as we have on the offensive line, we don't have much depth. I think the coaches might be worried about this. The same holds true for many positions, such as the secondary, linebackers, defensive line, and quarterbacks, where we have good starters but inexperienced backups. It probably sounds like our team is just one man deep at each position, but we should be good, hopefully the best, as long as the starters stay healthy. Now that I know more about the offense and the line play, I can really see that being on the scout team sucks. We don't have any rules for blocking, no correct steps or anything to tell us what to do if our guy slants away. All we do is read a card and then block along the line drawn in that card. Basically, the scout team is designed to fail. The defense almost always lines up a little bit differently than what is written on the card, so we usually end up guessing where to go. Because of this constant indecision and second guessing, I don't see how I'm going to get myself off the scout team and up with the number 2s. Also, we hardly have enough guys to fill in for me even if I did move up. Saturday, September 2nd, 2000. Nebraska 49, San Jose State 13. Finally, the first game of the season. San Jose State was a little better than we thought, and we didn't play as well as we could have, which added up to a fairly exciting game for the first half. Our offense played fluidly, drove the ball down the field without much resistance, and scored on 4 straight drives. The defense, on the other hand, had a lot of breakdowns and looked pretty bad. There were a lot of missed tackles, and many of the guys seemed to be running through the motions like they were still in practice. By second half, the defense was playing much better, and it didn't matter by then. Luckily, we never fumbled, but we did have 3 interceptions. I didn't get in this game, but I'm patient. It was also very hot today, with the temperature near 120 degrees on the field. I didn't really feel the heat, but my face was sunburned by the end of the day. We got $15, and we also got our warm-up suits earlier this week. They are mostly black with red stripes. Monday, September 4th, 2000. Toniu Finoti earned the honor of Offensive Lineman of the Game. He graded out perfectly for the game, meaning he didn't make one mistake the entire day, while also completing his block successfully. This is amazing enough, but for a true sophomore to do it means only great things for his future. Tuesday, September 5th, 2000. Coach Solich told the offense today that he expects nothing less than 40 points against Notre Dame. It would be great if the press heard about this. I don't know yet if I'm going to the game. I asked Coach Tenneper, and he said I'm questionable. I should find out tomorrow. Wednesday, September 6th, 2000. It's official! Notre Dame will be my first road trip. I found out today that I will go, and I'm really looking forward to it. Thursday, September 7th, 2000. After our sweats practice today, we had to pack up our game bags with all the stuff out of our lockers that we'll need for the game. I think everyone is really ready for this game, especially the defense. Friday, September 8th, 2000. After a late night of studying and figuring out what to take on the trip, I made it to lunch at 10:30. The buses were waiting out in the South Stadium parking lot, and we left by 11:30. We went straight to the airport, loaded from the tarmac, and soon we were in the air and on the way to South Bend. I worked on the lineman test during the flight, something the guys who play do every game. I don't know if I will actually play, but it's worth it to take the test to figure out how to take them later. Basically, they have a play listed against a series of different defenses, and we have to draw in the lines for which defender we block and also list any calls we make. I didn't think it was too hard, but I tried to do every position when I was only supposed to do the center. I didn't get downgraded, but it was the first time and no one told me how to do this. Also, during the flight, Pat Logsdon, the director of football operations, gave everyone $15 for food money. I think this money for food thing is getting a little out of hand. We don't even have any opportunity at all to spend this money on food while we're with the team for the Notre Dame game. We arrived in South Bend at about 1:30 and went straight to the stadium. South Bend looks a lot like any other small Midwestern town, and then, over the trees, you see this magnificent golden dome. We drove up to the stadium, where hundreds of people were gathered. We were very surprised to see many people in red. It almost reminded us of Lincoln. Across from the entrance to the stadium is a grass mall, where they were setting up a commentary booth, and at the end of the mall is the famous Touchdown Jesus. This is a giant mosaic on the side of a tall building, depicting a biblical scene, and in the middle is Jesus with his arms in a relaxed touchdown signal pose. I think if they made him shrug his shoulders a little bit, it would look more like an I don't know Jesus. We got to the locker room, which was entirely too small for us. A lot of guys had to double up on lockers, including me. We got dressed quickly for our walkthrough and then headed out. To get to the field, we had to pass through the famous tunnel, which actually was pretty cool to do after seeing the movie Rudy. As I got onto the field, I happened to see someone I know. Vince Lenz and his wife Paula, who were great family friends with my parents, were standing right there on the field. Vince didn't recognize me at first, due to the much longer hair than usual, but he finally realized who I was, and we had a nice little reunion right there with some picture-taking. Vince went to Notre Dame many years ago, and has been an adamant fan as long as I have known him. I wasn't really surprised to run into him on this trip, but to see him on the field before practice blew me away. We had some time to kill before practice, so I wandered around on the grass field, taking in the whole stadium where so much history has taken place. It's a very simple Coliseum-style stadium, with an even slope of seats from top to bottom. They recently added a couple thousand seats by giving the top an extra ring, which blends into the whole stadium nicely. There are 2 scoreboards, one at each end of the stadium, but there are no yardage statistic boards like we have. Their press box is a large, flat, dark glass structure with a couple stories and many different compartments on one side of the stadium. Around the field are raised flower beds at the height of the first row of seats. This only gives about 7 feet between the first row and the players, compared to the huge walkway we have on each side of our stadium. Something unusual about this practice was that there were about 200 people in the stands watching us and more people on the sidelines. I asked Russ Hochstein if this was typical for an away game, and he said we never have a crowd at other away game practices. After the short practice, where we walked through about 10 plays, we changed and headed for the hotel. We stayed at a Holiday Inn in Michigan City, about an hour west of South Bend. At meetings, I was never so bored in my life. We were watching film from Thursday's practice, and I couldn't believe we ran so many plays in one Thursday session. When it was finally over, we made our way to dinner and had one of the best spreads of food I've seen in a while. I wasn't too hungry after all the snacking we'd done all day, but I still managed to put away a good amount. After dinner, we went to a local movie theater where we saw The Watcher. If that wasn't enough excitement, we then went back to the hotel and had a special teams meeting and a snack. Saturday, September 9th, 2000. Nebraska 27, Notre Dame 24. We got our wake-up call around 7:30 this morning and made our way to the meetings by 8. This was a really quick meeting in which the coaches basically told us that we already know everything and that today is the day to prove it. We then had a hearty breakfast, got taped, packed, and were ready to go by 10:30. Before we left, we watched our psych-up tape with Carlos Polk as the main man giving the pep talk. There was also a guest star, former player Grant Winstrom, who told us how lucky we are and how much he would like to be playing today because he hates Notre Dame. Right after this, we boarded the buses and were on our way with the police escort. When we pulled up to the stadium, all we could see was a giant crowd of people dressed in red. The streets were packed with our fans, and everything around the stadium was swarming with Husker fans and their vehicles. It seriously made us feel right at home. The atmosphere in the locker room before the game was very intense. Everyone was full of energy. Everyone was acting like an anxious tiger pacing its cage, waiting for the chance to bust through the bars and wreak havoc. After the traditional sound-off, where a handful of important players make emotional speeches and inside a mosh pit, we gathered in a circle holding hands and then said the team prayer, which I finally learned. It's said in a call-and-response fashion, and goes, "Dear Lord, in the battles we go through life, we ask for a chance that's fair, a chance to equal all our stripes, a chance to do or dare. If we should win, let it be by the code, with our faith and our honor held high. If we should lose, let us stand by the road, and cheer as the winners go by. Day by day, we get better and better. The team that can't be beat won't be beat." The last sentence is shouted, and the last 3 words are said in unison as loud as possible. As we ran out onto the field, I noticed something strange. While there were a lot of blue and gold in the stands, there was also an incredible amount of red. About 25,000 people out of the crowd of 80,000 were dressed in red, which truly made this feel like a home game. The only thing that changed that feeling was when Notre Dame got a little momentum and their student section exploded with cheers and noise. The atmosphere at Notre Dame is a lot more relaxed and fun than we have at Nebraska. This can be credited to the student section, which covers 7 sections of the stadium and takes up a full corner. They were packed in there, and that only added to their energy. When they scored, hundreds of students were held above the others and did push-ups for the number of points they had. It looked like a dark blue ocean with waves rippling over it. They also did these cheers that had arm motions for the whole crowd. One funny thing about this is that all I could see were white arms, and that's funny in a weird way. About the game, all I have to say is wow. That was easily the most exciting game I've ever seen in my life. Technically, it shouldn't have been so close, but we had two major breakdowns on special teams that gave up 2 touchdowns on a kick return and a punt return. Those 2 touchdowns helped put us into overtime for the 3rd time in our history. We chose to be on defense first, and held them with an amazing effort, and they came away with a field goal, putting them up 24-21. Then it was our turn to start from the 25. On a crucial 3rd down, Eric Crouch connected to tight end Tracy Wistrom for a 1st down. Then I-back Dan Alexander pounded his way inside the 10. Eric Crouch finished it off with a sprint to the left and through the corner of the end zone for the win. Everybody on the team immediately rushed the field and swarmed the end zone, where photographers then swarmed us. All in all, Notre Dame was a good team. They had a lot of fast guys on defense that shut our option game down. Their special teams were much better than ours, and their offense had a big, strong line, a quick quarterback, and a great backfield. I think they are totally underrated, but they might have just appeared to be good since this was their home game. Since I didn't get in for any plays, and it wasn't very sweaty, I just dressed quickly after the game and eventually found my parents, their friends, and my cousins who found tickets for themselves in the student section. We stood around talking for a little bit and finally said goodbye and boarded the bus.